up on YouTube. No,
Oh,
we're up on YouTube.
actually,
Never
yeah.
mind. For those out there on YouTube, they can listen to our idle banter. Thrilling. Hey, Robbie. So the winner of the manhole cover / pothole cover contest is the College of Charleston. They had a team out there the next day, but they couldn't fix it.
Really?
So here's what we're talking about. On Cumming Street, there were 3 loose manhole covers that are also huge potholes. So at a meeting out there with the DOT, with our team, with the College of Charleston, and we discovered that the three manhole covers that are all within 50 feet of each other, each fall under a different jurisdiction. Everyone's looking around, and the guy for the DOT, whose name I forget, was hysterical. He was like, I can't give a deposition about that one. So I'm not giving a deposition on that one. I only get deposed over my own manhole covers. There's Carl.
Hey, Mike, you should go ahead and start. The mayor's just going to be a few minutes late, so go ahead and start.
Okay, I'm going to do it. If that's okay with everybody else, I would like to call the March 8th, 2021 meeting of the City of Charleston Traffic and Transportation Committee to order and ask that we begin with an invocation or a moment of silence, please, led by Council Member Del Chapo.
We'll just take a moment of silence.
Thank you very much. Okay. First order of business is approval of minutes from February 22nd.
Move for approval.
We have a
Second.
motion. Can we have a second? Any additions, deletions, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next on our agenda is approval of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of agreement with Palmetto Railways, the South Carolina Department of Commerce, and the South Carolina Ports Authority regarding the Navy Base Intermodal Facility project. Mr. Benjamin.
I'm going to alley-oop it to Chip, but I'll be able to answer some questions too.
I'd like to see that. See the alley-oop.
Okay, so this has actually been going on for a long time, the negotiations regarding the new Navy Base Intermodal Facility and specifically the Southern Loop that would go through the city of Charleston. I'm going to do my share screen. I've got a few pictures I can show you. Let's see here. Okay, so this is a list of mitigation projects or showing proposed mitigation projects the city had put together some time ago. I believe it was around 2017 that all this started. And the proposed Southern Loop is sort of designed to go this way in that little red area right here. This transaction also importantly involves city-owned property, the former W.R. Grace site, which is this property highlighted there. I've also got the plat of this property, which is 16.464 acres. We've been in discussions with really Commerce for Palmetto Railways for a long time. My understanding is the Ports Authority somehow got involved in the discussions, and there was an offer made, basically paying the city 11.50. I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head. $11.5 million in satisfaction of 2 obligations we were trying to work out. One is the purchase of a portion of the W.R. Grace site for use of the railway, and the other is for the city to use as mitigation for existing and future impacts from the Southern Loop. The language as far as what we can do with the funds is fairly broad, except for I think it's $4.9 million has to be used for mitigation improvements. It's anticipated that the city's current plans for the site related to the Magnolia Development Agreement for W.R. Grace were to construct a new public works facility on that site. The city is looking at the we're visiting the Magnolia Development Agreement to try to figure out an alternative site and to deal with that issue. One of the ones we've been discussing is this site up here, which is about 10 acres. SCPR, or excuse me, the SPA Ports Authority is looking at purchasing around 2.5 acres of the WR Grace site, which would leave, I don't know, roughly, 13.5 acres for us to continue to use or deal with. So we're looking for a new spot for the public works facility because we don't think this site is going to hold it under those circumstances. And then also we've got a list of several mitigation projects. We're not locked into those projects. We have discretion moving forward as to how to use the mitigation monies and what percentage of that $11.5 million would go to finding, purchasing, and constructing an alternative public works facility versus mitigation projects. Just to give you a history, the Ports Authority had proposed mitigation projects of $4.3 million in 2017. Our mitigation projects were much more, we had a lot more projects, and they were in the neighborhood of like $38 million that we had wanted. And we were just stuck at the $4 million and us wanting a lot more than that. The General Assembly is in the process of debating economic bonds that would support the construction of the Southern Loop and the MBIF facility. And this agreement would be contingent on that legislation being passed. If it's not passed, we wouldn't be giving up anything, and the Ports Authority would not have any obligation to pay us any money. But really, when things started moving is when that issue went to the General Assembly, and that's when the Ports Authority moved a lot, and we got this agreement in writing. I've been working with Randy Lowell, who's the Ports Authority's attorney, to sort of get this in a final form. With respect to the purchase, obviously there's a lot of details that need to be worked out. My intent at present is to lock in as much as possible the obligation for the money and what the city's going to give up. And a future ordinance would have to specify the exact property being given up and address a lot of the property issues with that transfer, like the environmental issues. I don't think that'll be a problem, but this is not something that we're going to get a check in a month. This is something where we're trying to get the agreement of everyone locked in place, subject to the approval of those bonds, and then move towards a more specific process once that's done. And with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure there will be several of them.
I suspect. I can't see everybody because your share screen is up, but
Okay.
any questions for Mr. McQueenie? I'm sure that, thank you. All right, we'll start with Council Member Jackson, because I saw your hand first, and then we'll go around the bend.
Thank you. I don't know if the mayor jumped on to hear your
He's here.
description. Okay, I know he's on now, but you said at the beginning of your discussion, Chip, that we're letting go about 2.35 acres.
I think it's going to be
Property.
5.3 is the most recent I've gotten. And I asked Randy to basically to get me a not to exceed acreage amount to be able to convey to you all on that property. And he came back with 2.53 acres. The mayor and I have been discussing that since we got it, and hope it will be much less, but that's what we're looking at this point.
So at what point will that decision be made? I mean, if we're being asked to say yes to an agreement to sell land that we don't even yet know how much land.
That'll be wrapped up in the purchase and sale agreement. I guess what I'm asking for now is the authority to sell up to 2.53 acres of that land as part of this deal, is what we're looking at. Again, I think the goal right now, especially before the bond legislation gets passed, is to lock everybody into a memorandum of agreement as to what's going to happen once that bond passes. The concern being that if it passes and we don't have something in writing, we may not be locked in. And so I think that's really our primary focus right now.
And Mr. Chair, can I ask one other question then that I think is probably more related to this committee than I know the same, question is at the real estate committee that we'll be hearing in a little while. But in terms of mitigation, definition of mitigation, are we, I know it says that we can retain the sole discretion as to the type and location, but is there like a state of the art, some sort of mitigation definition that we have to follow in order to decide where we're going to use these monies or exactly how? I mean, I know this whole area, for example, is going to be totally reworked in order to accommodate the rapid transit line. And do we need, like a lot of overpasses for pedestrian safety? And we have the benefit of the chairman of CARTA right here with us. So I don't know. I just feel like I know that this is jump on an offer because it hasn't ever been this good, is my understanding where we are right now. But it does seem like there's just a lot of moving parts that we're being asked to harden without really, knowing the total benefit to the city. So that's my two.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's really more of from a political standpoint, whether we're not going to get, I don't think, and Mayor can speak to this as well. I think the problem is this is the best we're going to get. I don't think we're going to get more than that. I would love to come to you and say we should dig in and hold out for X amount of money. But as a practical matter, I think, this is what we're going to get, or this is the best deal we're going to get without creating a lot of enemies on a state level, and holding up the facility. I think, to be blunt, I think that's where it is.
Just one follow-up then. I appreciate that. I'm not really even talking about the money. I'm talking about what we're being obligated to do by some fairly generous definitions of mitigation and and improvements and things like that, that obviously we love to improve things. And we know there's a lot of improvements that are going to have to be made if we're going to make this whole area a lot more amenable to pedestrian use and low country rapid transit travel routes and things. But so that's probably more my concern at this point. It's not so much the dollars, it's what are we giving up and what do we have to do with the money that we're getting?
Okay, Mayor.
So the primary focus of all our mitigation discussions and over the years has been mostly with Department of Commerce and South Carolina Railways, was all about the impact on traffic. So we had a thorough study and analysis done by Jennifer Beal, and it was also reviewed with great scrutiny by South Carolina Railways and Commerce and their traffic consultants. So it all centered around the traffic mitigation. Now, the numbers, the big shift in the numbers occurred when it was apparent that the preference for low country rapid transit was on the King Street side rather than the Meeting Street side. So that made a huge difference in my regard. And as Chip mentioned, we'd kind of been stuck with around the $4 million range with them for years. So I kind of view this as a breakthrough and a very reasonable deal for the city to provide our citizens some mitigation and to help us, even though it's a little more property than I thought they might need to take from us on Herbert Street. But you got to consider that part of that side of our property includes a drainage easement, and I believe we'll do our best to work out a deal when we actually transfer the property to maintain some rights for stormwater and for dealing with water. There's an easement there already, so they got to deal with it. So just based on those kinds of thoughts about the value of the property. I mean, I've heard wide ranges, and we can go ahead and get an appraisal done on it. I think the city bought the property for about $200,000 an acre. And even if you valued it at $500,000 an acre, so 2.5 acres, what, $1,250,000 for the property, and then $10 million for the mitigation, which is way more than what we've been talking about before. It's a good deal. But here's the thing that most of our mitigation accomplishes, that Jennifer and the team came up with, is if you're coming up or down Meeting Street and you happen to see this big long train up ahead of you, to provide some other connectivity between Meeting and King across the railroad tracks and improve what's already there, and then can have a connector on the north side directly to the port access road, so that our public safety vehicles can get around, so that even our citizens get around. Don't get me wrong, you might get to the point you're right up close to the train, you don't want to turn around or something, but everything we had in mind to keep traffic flowing as best as possible, and to provide access for public safety vehicles in the event of an emergency. So that's why, to be honest with you, I was a little stubborn about, they had wanted us to sign off on this 3 years ago, and I never would bring it forward because I didn't think we really had adequate coverage to do much of what was needed. And given the fact that the rapid transit is out of the way, I think this is a solid proposal for our citizens.
Any other questions from any member of the committee? I just, Mayor, while we got you, I got a couple of questions just to see what the future looks like. Chip, can you pop up the map that shows the southern routing of the actual line?
Yes, sir.
So I remember, Mayor, when we went through this and Jennifer Beal did her study, and when it was Meeting Street, not King Street for LCRT, as I recall, didn't she show at rush hour the projected backups of something like 6,000 feet? I mean, it was some crazy number that she come up with. So on this map, Chip, where's King Street?
Well,
It's in blue there for some.
yeah,
Blue and gray.
King would be here.
Okay, so it's outside of the loop of
Yes, sir.
the southern. Okay, so we'll still have unfettered access going through there and not need to build a flyover?
Correct.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It does not cross King Street.
Okay.
There is one rail line that crosses King Street, a CSX line up there, but but this rail would not cross King Street.
So that's our.
Excuse me, is that the definition of southern access? Rail? It's a little rail.
Hang on. Not quite finished here yet. Okay, so, all right, I see. So that red line, Chip, that's on the western side is to the east of the entire King Street right of way. There's room there both for the road and whatever we got on either side for utilities and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're
Yeah,
just
that's
pinched
all.
in by the overpasses in a couple places, but other than that, we're clear.
Correct.
And I take it, Mayor, that we can use, I mean, and is our plan to use some of this money to do some improvements along that corridor to make it more passable and more accessible and more safe for bikes, pedestrians, everybody else as that area grows, which inevitably is going to, right?
Absolutely. So well, this is not so much for bike ped, but see, like at number 5 there.
Yep.
That would be a new crossing of the railroad tracks between King and Meeting, just south of where the Southern Loop crosses Meeting. So like I said, if you were coming up Meeting Street, you could see that big train in front of you. You could just take a left and cut on over to King Street and avoid it. And likewise, if you head north a little bit, there, Chip, if you were on the north side and you needed to get away or get out, you could take a right on Pittsburgh Avenue and then head on up further, a little further up north, Chip, and see where that number one is, that would kind of create a back door to the port access
Access.
road, which lets everybody get on and off the interstate
Right.
system without going over the railroads.
So it seems like one of the things we should put in the mitigation plan is some kind of signage that alerts people that the train is coming, so they don't have to go up, U-turn, do all that kind of stuff. One of the things that surprised me as I've learned about what's going on at the port and as they expand, the projection for some of the trains that are coming into that southern access, it's going to be 15,000 feet long trains running at 10 miles an hour. So if you get caught at a crossing of a 15,000 foot train running at 10 miles an hour, if you do the math, that's a good bit of 40 minutes out of your day by the time it slows it down and everything. And that's if it goes perfectly. That's crazy, right? 15,000 feet. So, I mean, I don't know what the value of this deal is. Have they got a mitigation plan, Mayor, with North Charleston as well? Are they paying them a hunk of money for whatever they're doing up there too?
Chip, you might, they had a long-standing agreement, Mr. Chairman, from over 10 years ago to pay for certain overpasses at certain locations. They modified that recently, I understand, into a new agreement for current times, for new agreement.
Yes, they do. And I believe that it sort of all arose out of the Noisette redevelopment authority agreement. They were in a much different situation than we are because of they had a pre-existing sort of MOU, and there was all that litigation ensued, and there was a fairly long settlement agreement involving that litigation, but lots of property swaps. It's not an easy thing to compare because there's so much going on in North Charleston, and really we just have the Southern Loop here, which I completely agree. Having lived in Columbia for 5 years, it's not fun.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that neck area is going to grow so much over the course of the next 10 to 20 years, both in the neck area and to the west, that there'll be plenty of activity up there, and we just got to make sure people get through. And so I'll hand it back to Councilmember Jackson with another question. But so is the request to this committee to give the mayor authority to sell up to 2.3 acres for the amount stated and to use that money in a broadly discretionary fund for mitigation in the area? Is that the request?
Yeah, it's 2.53.
2.5.
Yes, it's and the agreement that's attached is it does not include the 2.53, but I will probably have a more exact amount on that before second reading of this, as well as a purchase and sale agreement up for first reading at the time we do that. So yes, but that is overall the request.
Who's going to take, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have the agenda in front of me. It seems to me that the real estate committee would technically make that approval. Isn't that right, Chip? But we said there were so many transportation related pieces of the puzzle here with the mitigation. We thought it appropriate to bring forth to both committees.
Right. Well, I think the request to us is to authorize you to sign that memorandum of agreement. So I just want to make sure that that's the agreement, that we're going to give up to 2.53 acres for that piece of property. Are we going to zone it appropriately before we hand it over?
Been thinking through that. It's zoned HI right now, so I don't know how much different it would be zoned. But yeah, I was thinking through that today as I was going through the other property sales in that area to discuss that with zoning.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Jackson, do you have another question? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to clarify that the Southern Loop is actually a railway track. And would it be possible to have Ms. Beal's report circulated to all of us? I think that would be a good update.
Absolutely.
Just remember when you read it, it's talking about traffic effects on Meeting Street, not on the King Street extension. But I do think I'm right that it says 6,000 feet of backup from south to north at prime rush hour.
It is. It's a couple hundred pages too. So I'm probably going to link for you to download, but I will send it out.
She earned her money. All right. Councilmember Del Chapo and Brady, any questions of either Mr. McQueenie, Mr. Benjamin, or the mayor, who has been intimately involved with this, it looks like? All right. I don't think we've had a motion yet. Do we have a motion?
I'll move for
So moved.
approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? I guess I would just say, Chip, before we get to council at second reading, we'll take a look at the zoning issues and what that agreement actually looks like and the timing of it, right? I mean, we don't want to
Sure.
turn this over until all the other details are had with all the different governments.
And it does say pursuant to separate purchase and sale agreements. So we're, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I recognize there's a lot of details to work out,
Crazy.
and it's going through my head and I'm working them out. So
I do have one more question while we're all here, because it's people can ask, is Palmetto Railways going to run the Southern Loop and then connect with whatever, so with CSX and Norfolk Southern as they get out to the north? Is that how that's going to work?
that is my understanding. I don't know if anybody else here knows more about it. That is my understanding of the plan. Yes. It's interesting because the railroad laws apply differently to CSX and Norfolk Southern than they do Palmetto Railways. And
Right.
they probably did it the right way in order to enjoy the most benefit out of state laws.
Are we going to deed this in Palmetto Railway's name? Is that where the deed's going to go?
I think the Ports Authority wants us to deed it to them, but I'll double check that with Randy to see what the idea is. I don't mind. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ports Authority is paying the money, assuming that bond passes. So that was the part I was most, I did want to make sure who the money was coming from.
Right. And I think just last thought is, because there's so much stretch that we need on every dollar that comes in, it's important that everyone understand when we get around the table of 13, when we vote, that the principal use of this money will be for mitigation in that area,
And
whatever that means, but
it's
still,
required. We tried to give, representing developers in the past, maximum flexibility and maximum predictability. But yes, it's broadly worded and flexible as to how we can use it for mitigation, but it's got to be used for mitigation or replacement facilities for associated with the public works facility. So those are the two things that we're working from with that $11.5 million.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on the motion that has been properly seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Go forward and prosper. This one will be interesting. I mean, soon see what real estate does with it too. All right. Next on our agenda, Mr. Benjamin, is a director's update.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for the time. Just wanted to go through a few things. Please feel free to stop me or interrupt me as need be. Wanted to let you all know, we came to you not too long ago regarding the I-26 lease agreement with SEDOT and reported that we had figured out how to navigate with SEDOT in the appropriate language. We found out from there that they needed to run that language past the Federal Highway Administration. And so navigated that, got the cosign from the Federal Highway Administration as well. And that document is sitting on the Secretary's desk with the mayor's signature already. And so we are rounding the bend with having that agreement in place. So I'm really excited about that moving forward. As you all probably already have seen, the Maybanking River intersection is up and running. That was a county project, but that's a signal that we're going to have to operate and maintain. And so we were involved in that piece and getting that moving. I got a couple of questions about the flashing yellow arrows at Farmfield and also at Lockwood and Calhoun. We're still going back and forth with SCDOT with those studies and waiting on DOT to make a final review of those to get back to us so we can get those two locations appropriately installed. Meeting and Brigade, if you have not been out there, please take a look. It's getting finished up. Still have some thermal to do, some green paint to do, but that project is rounding the bend. We're really excited about that project and the partnership there with the state DOT. Again, an opportunity that we took to take advantage of the state DOT's resurfacing process, but then also you all allowing us to utilize TIF dollars to be able to make that project happen. So hopefully that'll be a precedent setting piece to duplicate in other areas of the city as well. Also rounded the bend and activated the location of Island Park Drive and Fairchild intersection as well. I know these signalized intersections seem like they take forever, but when you want decorated mast arms, they're customized for every single intersection. So that alone takes time. but just glad about all the work there. I will say, and this is a shout out to Troy, our signals manager, that entire project was done by both a minority-owned business and a women-owned business. Minority-owned business did the entire construction of the signal. A women-owned business handled all the sidewalking and other concrete work there. And so just really excited about that project moving forward. We actually trying to get verification, so I don't want to give numbers at the moment, but it looks like we actually, Amy will be under budget for that intersection as well. The Project 700 Crosswalks, just as a reminder, another partnership with SCDOT of trying to improve signalized intersections for pedestrian safety. It started as a trial project with the city and now is throughout the District 6. We have 4 other locations that hopefully will be moving forward in July. Again, the partnership, we pay for the signal plan. SCDOT District 6 takes on the responsibility of all of the materials and installation. So coming at Vanderhorst, coming at Radcliffe, coming at Morris, and then Rutledge at Cleveland are the 4 other intersections that we're doing. If you all have ideas about intersections that have standard materials, because that's the only way we've been able to work with DOT at those places that may not have pedestrian signals, may not have ADA compliance, may not have the appropriate crosswalks, high-res crosswalks and otherwise, and you want us to work with DOT on those, please let us know. We want to continue that partnership with them and taking advantage of their maintenance dollars. B's Ferry and Sanders Road intersection also supposed to be signalized. We have reviewed those signal plans. It's a county project, but again, another intersection we would have to maintain and operate. We were told just this afternoon that they are trying to move swiftly to bid that project out this year. Again, fabricating of the signals, all that stuff. So you're still talking about a 12 to 18 month process. But
hey Keith, on that particular light, is it going to be where if traffic queues on Sanders, it'll trip the light, and then other than that, Beast Ferry will always have priority, or is it going to cycle through?
I got to go back with the through the signal plans, but we'll be working to make sure that Beast Ferry is all those lights are all coordinated and otherwise. You know, that's part of our responsibility there, and I know that's one of the concerns there. And to be fair, also the balance of folks saying don't take away any signal in the area, but also keep the traffic moving, right? So, but
I am familiar with that argument.
So we'll try to make sure we do that appropriate balance. I reported this out to some of you all via email, but just so I'm saying it on the record at TNT, we also did complete the reviews for River at Fenwick Hall, signalized intersection as well. That also is county project, a part of the Northern Pitchfork, but again, intersection that we will have to maintain and operate. And so we've submitted that to them and are good to go on our side. Parking, you don't hear me talk about that enough, but just giving you the heads up that this year we took on the dispatch that used to be at the county. All those staff now have all been relocated to their new, brand new office on the 3rd floor at 2 George. And so all of our parking enforcement entities are all together, and so excited about them getting there. We did start the probably dreaded, but anticipated golf cart enforcement last week. So we've been on top of that, but only 2 golf carts have been cited since our start of that. I know some folk were concerned about that, but we want compliance more so than going out trying to find somebody.
So Keith, I'm just going to tell you from my perspective at District 8 and people downtown, they like it. So it's not dreaded at all. They actually have been thankful for it. And a bunch of people called up to ask how they could get registered and all that. So I've not heard any negative backlash at all. Zero.
I appreciate that. Our folk are just trying to do their job. And, you know, 1 sheet application and $5 gets you in compliance. And so hopefully for those that aren't, they are doing their due diligence with that. And then also wanted to just let you know, at our last meeting, we had Ron from the COG come and present about Carter and that work. And so we've been moving expeditiously with his staff with 9 shelter locations that are going to have digital signage in there to tell people what's happening, and also emergency management Just last week, I signed off on 27 locations that are also going to get the solar lighting at locations that currently aren't sheltered but need to have appropriate lighting. And then also, if you all remember, and Councilmember Chair knows, we've been doing the COVID testing at Mary Street Station since the beginning of February. And as of last week, over 830 folk have been serviced just at the Mary Street Transit location. And so just glad about expanding that access as much as possible there too. So I know that
2:30 to 6:30, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
It's been great. And I think we've done even more than that up in North Charleston. So between the two, a lot of people have come through and gotten tested. It's been good. Now we can get them vaccinated, it'd be even better.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But those were my quick updates. I don't know if there's other pieces you all want me to cover or other questions that you all have for myself or staff to follow up on, but please let me know. And we can definitely answer that for you.
Any other questions? Any questions, Mr. Benjamin? Councilmember Jackson?
I think it's Mr. Somerville, but I was just wondering, did you find out anything about the 2021 road resurfacing yet, Robbie?
Yes, the county did respond back indicating that one, that the pothole that was on, that's supposed to be done in April of this year as part of 2020 resurfacing, and they have not finalized the 2021 resurfacing plan.
What they usually do and I sent this out to you all for last year, what they usually do at the same time as they send out the TST awardings, many of those we also get an updated list of the roads that have been identified in that sales tax process as well. Keep in mind too, I believe I sent it out, but I could resend. You have the CTC gas tax money as well that goes towards some resurfacings. But yeah, we would definitely let you all know. We have been approached by SCDOT about their own. They have a very much smaller list of some of their streets that they're going to be looking at to do at the top of 2022. They haven't finalized that list, but obviously we will make sure that gets out to you all as well once they do.
Okay, lots cooking. I did learn today, by the way, if anybody asks, from Mr. Somerville, that if you have a properly registered golf cart, you can still, within the rules and parameters that are out there, get a parking sticker in the parking districts if you live within the parking districts for your golf cart. So learned something about that today too. All right, anything else from any member of the committee for Mr. Benjamin, Mr. Somerville? Anyone else is with us? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and see you all at our next great meeting, which I guess is tomorrow.
So moved.
All right, y'all.